Barakim Habarim, welcome to Messianic Moment Ministries. I'm Stephen Bruck. You know who you are, and today's the 22nd day of February 2022. So we're 2/22/22, and it's Tuesday. Imagine. Well, if you aren't familiar with this particular passage we're talking about today, Mark 2:22, it's in the B'rit Chadashah. It's where Yeshua, Jesus, is telling people that new wine cannot go into old wineskins, and a new patch, which is unshrunk cloth, should not be sewn onto old clothes. Instead, new wine must go into new wineskins. In some cases, this passage is used to justify that there is no longer need for Gentile believers to obey the law of Moses, and that the Torah is that old wine and it represents the old clothes. Yeshua's teachings are the new wine that must go into new wineskins, indicating that any Jew, those are the only people Yeshua was talking to in those days, any Jew who still abided with the traditions and commandments as taught by the Pharisees would just not be able to understand, accept this new understanding. But this passage has really nothing to do with the law itself, because Yeshua wasn't talking about performance of the commandments. He was talking about having an open mind to the deeper meaning of the commandments. There was a Jewish form of exegesis called Pardes, P-A-R-D-E-S. The P stands for Peshat, which is the literal meaning of the laws. In other words, plain language. What you hear is what it is. The R is for Remez, which is a deeper, more spiritual meaning. The D is for Drash. A drash is a conversation or a story, parable, if you will, that has a moral meaning. And S is for Sod, which is an almost mystical understanding of the law. Yeshua taught the Remez, which is not what the Pharisees had been teaching. That's why people said that no one ever taught as he did. We see this especially in the Sermon on the Mount, when Yeshua said, we have been told, do not murder. That's the Peshat. But he says, do not even hate in your heart. That's the Remez. He also said, we've been told not to commit adultery. Peshat. But we should not even lust with our eyes. Remez. And he taught the people using parables, which is a drash. So when Yeshua talked about not using an unshrunk patch, representing someone who doesn't know the existing traditions on an old cloth, someone who has been indoctrinated into the old ways of understanding, he meant that a new believer who tried to work within the old traditions would become confused and not be able to maintain his new faith. See, I believe that statement was not meant for that time, but was a prophecy regarding newly believing Gentiles who would one day be confused by Jewish believers who wanted these neophyte Gentile believers to make a total conversion to both the Torah and the traditions of Judaism overnight. The letter Shaul wrote to the Galatians confirms this problem existed. Now, the reason you don't place new wine in old wineskins is that the new wine continues to ferment, releasing gases that will expand the wineskin. If an old wineskin is just one that has already been stretched out, is used for new wine, the expanding gases, well, it'll burst it, and the wine will be lost. The Jews who knew the Torah only as a set of rules to be followed to the letter, they only knew the Peshat, well, they're the old wineskins. And what Yeshua was teaching was new wine, the remez of the commandments. He never taught anything against the laws of Moses, only the deeper meaning of them. That is the new wine. What Yeshua was teaching would eventually expand a person's understanding of the Torah. So if someone was not open to learning this newer, deeper meaning of the law, in other words, being a new wineskin, then what will happen is that being an old wineskin, their minds incapable of accepting this newer meaning, closed to the opportunity to learn, well, they will burst. In other words, they'll eventually just reject Yeshua and what he taught and revert back to their comfort zone of just doing what the Pharisees taught, which is, well, pretty much today the rabbinic rules that in the Talmud that we call halakha. If you're wondering why it is so important to know the remez, then read Jeremiah 31:31, which is the new covenant which God promised to make with us. We are to have the Torah written on our hearts, meaning that it isn't just doing what the Torah says that matters, the Peshat. It is wanting to do it. That's the remez. I think we can all agree that when you really want to do something, it's much easier to do, even if it is difficult or requires sacrifice. When God gave the Torah to Moses to teach the children of Israel, he knew this would be hard for them. That's why he allowed us to deal only with the Peshat. We were only able to drink milk. After a few thousand years with the Peshat, God sent Yeshua to teach us the remez, the real meat of the law, giving us the opportunity to come closer to God and be better understanding of what he meant. And this was necessary for us, Jews, to complete God's plan of salvation, which is to be his nation of priests. That's Exodus 19:6. And as his nation of priests, bring the full understanding of the Torah to the Gentiles. The next time Yeshua comes, will bring to final completion God's plan of salvation for the entire world. That's when those who were able to be new wineskins, Jew and Gentile alike, that's when they will be united with God forever. Well, thank you for being here. And please share these messages with everyone you know, hey, believer or non-believer, in order to help this ministry grow. And if you haven't already done so, please subscribe. Both the website, there's a subscribe button in the right-hand margin, and one of these icons somewhere here on YouTube. Click it and subscribe. And don't forget, either way, to set notifications so you'll be notified when I post. And hey, I've written 4 books. And if you like what you get here, you will like my books as well. You know, only one is thick. All the rest are pretty easy. You can read them in a few hours. And they're available on Amazon Books. Just look up my whole name, Stephen R. Bruck, or use the link on my website. Okay, that's it for today. So, B'rit Chadashah and Baruch Hashem.